kids or wife or anything like that, and you have a chance to run out. Now, you've got a gun, and you have a chance to get out. Would you take on the shooter, or would you leave?
It would probably be a combination of both, because I understand that in a self-defense situation, that the best self-defense is to just get away and not confront it. But if I was the only thing there, I would have to find some real cover and try to distract him from killing those people. I don't know that I could.
Bill, you're not answering the question.
Sure.
There's two options here.
Okay.
You can get away clean, or you can take a shot.
I'm going to take a shot.
Why?
I can't leave those folks there. I can't just leave them at the mercy of this guy. I don't want him to wait for the police officers to show up and be part of that 14.3 that die. I want to hold his numbers down as best I can. If I can hold it at 0, I want to stop it.
Do you think that the average concealed carry holder would have your same opinion? Or, I personally would say it's okay. If they want to leave to get away from being killed, that's a natural human instinct too.
Right.
So the question that the antis are asking is what good would it have done for someone to have had a gun there? And my own answer to that is what I would have done is yes, I would have tried to kill him.
Right.
Because not because I want to save innocent lives like you, but because I get angry. I get angry at people who think that they can take other people's lives like that they can inflict violence. It's not to save them; it's to take this guy out. I have that natural instinct to get angry when injustice happens, and that's what fuels the website. And I believe that was what would. Who knows? But in my heart of hearts, I believe that that's what I would do in that situation because of that anger.
I've never been in that situation. I don't know what emotions would be running through me. I have trained. Now, I've never trained to engage somebody in a movie theater. I haven't gotten to a mock-up yet like that, but I want one. I haven't trained to do that yet, but one way or the other, I'm going to engage the guy. The first thing I'm going to try to do is get in a position where I can engage him without him hitting anybody around me, so I'm going to have to be alone.
Does it even matter, though, Bill? I mean, you've got a guy who's opening fire on a crowd of people. Does it even – I mean, people – the big argument that the antis use is that there's collateral damage. We don't want a gunfight like we had in New York City where the cops shot 9 people, obviously, the highly trained police.
Yes.
The funny thing is that I cannot find one example of a defensive gun use by a civilian where somebody took out someone else, took out a person who wasn't the bad guy.
Right.
But if I want to say this, is that, the antis say, you can't have, it wouldn't have mattered because, the cops can only hit 17%, which is pretty funny because civilians have a far higher hit rate than police do. Yet they hold the police up as the standard.
Right.
But the thing is this: if this guy's opening fire on a crowd, you take your best shot. Maybe there is collateral damage, but you're stopping someone who's a mass killer.
Right. Well, I see what you're saying. The only caveat I would throw in there is if he's shooting at me as I'm coming up before I reveal myself as the guy he's going to get to engage, I'm going to have to move to a position where I can take him out, because if I make that move, then I'm going to keep on doing it till it happens.
Well, the simplest way to do that, and this is an important point for your listeners, is to run towards the target.
Yeah.
The closer you get, the less accurate you need to be.
That's why I was saying that somebody that had the presence of mind and saw the mask on. If I saw the mask, I'm just thinking, he can't see out of that, and it's dark too. Let me stroll on down there. And then I'm going to get real close.
Maybe strolling isn't the thing. But I would say that, your listeners and anybody who does carry a firearm or has one in the house really should just try and think these things through. They're good learning examples. What would you do in that situation, which is what people do in their head anyway. But, for example, let's say, Bill, you're a convenience store. You're second in line. Someone bursts in the door, aims a gun at the clerk, and demands the money. What are you going to do then?
He's going to die.
Well, maybe he'll just take the money and leave. You don't know.
I have no idea of knowing that when I see that, though. I don't have time to fill out a questionnaire. He's presented a weapon. It's a felony in my state to do that. I am within my rights to defend. I don't know if he's going to turn on me. If I've got the drop on him, sorry.
Well, it's also the thing of trying to move to get to cover, to try and hide.
Well,
here's the question. Do you always defend innocent life? Let me put it to you this way. I go down to my local Stop and Rob, as I call the convenience store. And I said to the guy behind the counter, I said, what do you do for self-defense? He says, oh, well, I've got a button to push for the cops. I said, oh, that's good. Good for you. I said, have you ever thought about having a firearm? And he says, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Now, this is a guy, right, who's in the crosshairs, and he's decided he doesn't want to have a firearm to protect himself.
Right.
Now, it's my job suddenly to protect him? What do I owe this guy or any other American who doesn't embrace their Second Amendment rights? Do I actually have to defend the lives of people who will actually vilify me for carrying a gun? But let me put it to this way. I was at the school, and this woman says to me, says to when we're hanging out with a couple of people, and says, this is Farrago, the guy who has a gun. And the other person says, well, if anything's happened, I'm getting close to him. I said, well, you won't see me for dust. If anything happens here, I'm grabbing my kid and I'm going. All of a sudden, rather than exercising their own Second Amendment rights, they're depending on me to defend them. I'm not a policeman.
Right. I've never been in that situation. I'm thinking that the way I have trained, if I'm second in line, say, for example, and I don't owe the clerk and I don't owe the person who's first in line and third in line anything, okay? I understand that. I get that part quite clearly. But at the same time, if I'm there and I'm close, the innocent life I'm really interested in protecting is mine. And if I'm in that situation and there is that possibility that this guy's going to turn on me, well, he's not going to get that chance.
Right.
And I'm not looking for that. Now, I'm not looking for that. I don't want that to happen. You know my background. I don't want to ever be in that position. But if I'm in that position, if the stuff is hitting the fan, I'm training to be the fan. I hear you. But this is something that a lot of people, the antis, believe that the people who carry guns are what some people in the gun community call sheepdogs, or they would call vigilantes. Right.
But they believe that we are all fantasy Clint Eastwoods. That we would all we really want something like this to go down so that we can save lives and become a hero. And I think that's a terrible miscalculation on their part, because it is not our job. Most of us do not carry guns to defend strangers. We carry it to defend ourselves and our loved ones.
Right.
And that's our number one priority. And we're not trying to inflict that upon society, nor are we trying to protect society. That's not our job.
Nope.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think anybody who exercises their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms has an obligation to defend innocent life that is not related to them. If they want to, and they can, awesome. But I don't believe they have that obligation.
I don't either. If I'm in close proximity and I act, it's not going to be out of any obligation to anybody there. My obligation is to my kids and my wife and to everybody that knows me, my parents, everything else. Any of the ones that I've got snowed under that really think that they like me, I am obligated to them to be there the next day.
Right. Well, you have to. That's the other thing, is that if I'm out somewhere and there's something bad going down, I'm pretty much a single parent. I have custody of my 9-year-old. So, if I play the hero and I get killed, well, then I've now destroyed my child's life.
Right.
Now her whole life has changed because I decided I wanted to play hero.
Yeah. It's a dicey situation, and it's not the easiest question to answer. The only thing, and there's not a lot of time to make that kind of decision if you find yourself in that position. But
yeah, we operate on instinct, but
right.
you can think about these things beforehand and decide. If somebody decides that they're going to, there are people on our website, for example, where we say let's say someone's breaking into the house next door to you, Bill, and do you go and as this father did, go and see what's going on, or do you just call the police? Do there are some people who say, I could never let these bad guys get away with it because society will crumble, and that's not the way I was born or raised. And I understand that. In this particular case, where the father shot the son, it was his sister's house next door, so that complicates the whole question.
Right.
But, you really do, as a gun owner, need to think about what you are willing to do. You have to, decide inside your mind what it is you're willing to do with the firearm, which is, after all, potentially anyway, the power of life and death. And you really should think these things through before the situation arises, and hopefully it never does.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not related to him, and the answer, the house thing, I would probably hunker down and get ready for the worst thing, and I would probably call the police. I probably am not going to tell them. I heard an instance today where somebody should have just shut up when he got stopped by the police. I'm not going to tell them, I'm here and I got my guns and I'm ready to go to war. Just tell me what you want me to do. But I am going to let them know what's going on. And if things go real deep south and I observe it, which by state law I have to know clearly who the bad guy is before I can engage them. I can't just go out there and walk up on somebody and say, well, these guys are fighting. He's winning. I'm going to shoot him. I've got to know clearly who is the bad guy before all of this starts. And if he's getting dusted, I don't have to do anything to him. But I wouldn't be running out there with my cape on and my guns ablazing saying, you shall not trespass into my neighborhood, sir. I wouldn't be doing that.
Well, you make a good point. And the story about this father is illustrative in another way, and that is that you really do not want to make assumptions. There is a famous incident, and it's famous, but I can't remember where it happened, where a woman was in a park, and two guys were trying to manhandle her, and she was crying, rape, 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 and the guy got out his gun, and luckily he didn't shoot anybody because the two people were undercover policemen, and this woman was trying to enlist somebody's help to get away from the cops.
Right.
So you can't necessarily assume that what you're seeing is as straightforward as you might think it is. The kind of rule of thumb is you really need to see the incident from start to finish.
Right.
So, for example, in that situation in the convenience store, there was an example where a clerk came around the counter and got another criminal's gun and pointed it at the criminal behind the counter. So the person in there had no way of knowing who was, thought that the person holding the gun towards the counter was the criminal, when in fact it was the clerk, right? Because if you walked in on that situation, you'd obviously think the person on the other side of the counter was robbing him. But in fact, it was the store owner himself who'd come across, got the gun, and was aiming at the criminal who was trying to take the money out of the till. So unless you see this whole situation starting from the start, from the very beginning, you've got to be very careful about making any assumptions. In fact, my feeling is, and tell me what you think, my assumption is that really not shooting is your number one option. You want to try and do anything possible not to shoot another human being.
If I'm in a situation where that is actually, if I can determine that's a really viable option, that's my first choice. Now,
see, that's what the people who are against gun ownership by civilians don't understand. Yeah, there are people who don't agree with you and me. There are nutcases who have guns, who may be vigilantes, but they're statistically insignificant. The vast majority of people who want to use their Second Amendment rights want to defend themselves, and they don't want to shoot anybody.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, those of you who have never done it, it is a truly, even if you emerge unscathed and you save the day later on when you are out there and you're by yourself and all the cameras have gone away and you're just by yourself and you realize what you've really just done, it is not the situation where you're sitting back and lighting a Marlboro and just saying, let's go get a cup of coffee. Okay, Skip. All right, let's go. It is going to it's going to change your life. Those nanoseconds are going to change your life. So if you can train to do it, but absolutely if you can avoid doing it, I wholly endorse that idea. Last but not least, before we go away, the Brady campaign. Who is this? No, the mayors. The mayors against all guns.
They're against illegal guns.
No, they're against all guns. They don't like any of them.
Right.
Which is
Right.
one of these days, the next time we do this, let's talk about the mayors against illegal guns, and let's talk about their criminal